Once you have finished your Sharpie, you're going to erase all of your extra pencil, making sure you go in small sections to not rip the paper. When you're finished with erasing your pencil, you want to go check your work with the teacher, and when it's your turn, you will paint. When you're able to paint, you're going to get an apron and then get a tray to put your work on, and then come over to paint at the counter. So I've got the paint set up by colors. So you're going to leave that paintbrush in there until you're ready to use it, and then you're going to choose where you want to put that color. So if I want 5 spots of yellow, I'm going to do that all right now instead of coming back to it later. So this is where you can paint your patterns on your chameleon. And when you are ready to move to your next color, you put that brush back in, and then we are actually going to move the tray down to the next color. So here I have orange, and I'm going to decide where I want to put my orange. You can use all the colors or some of the colors. It is up to you what you'd like to do. We are going to paint all the white though by the time we are finished. So remember, when you dip, you always want to wipe your brush before you go to your paper. So what I mean is wipe along the edge so that we are not dripping paint onto our paper. I'm going to leave that eye white for now. And I'm at another color. I'm going to go ahead and start painting some of the background. So I will be going back to paint the rest of that, but I'm going to go ahead and start here for now. And I want to show you a couple of painting techniques that you may do throughout. So you can see I have to be really careful to go around these toes because I really don't want the green inside the toe on this particular part. So this is just watercolor on dry paper. So I'm going to show you another technique. If you use I have just some plain water out here, and I put some water on the paper. I'm not getting it on any color, but I'm just painting the paper and getting it wet. This is called wet on wet. So you can see how the color kind of spreads out and a little bit different. See, this is on dry, this is on wet. So experiment to see if you have some areas in your painting that you want to do wet on wet or wet on dry. And then I'm going to show you some other things you can do. So you can see you can get some variations of that green color so that you have some light green, some dark green, some medium greens. So I like the dry to go around the toes just because it's a little easier to control. But where it was that wet on wet, you can see it's got a different look to it. And again, as I go around this tail, I'm going to have to be very careful. The other thing that's nice with wet on wet is it allows you to kind of mix colors if you want. So I might want to put a little bit of purple down here. Now remember, this is our Art to Remember project, so we do want to keep things bright. So that looks a little dark. I don't know that I'll keep doing those two colors, but that gives it a little bit different look to it. And maybe just spreading that out up in here. And then I have left to paint these stripes and as well as my background. Okay, so you can see I've painted everything that I want painted, except I did choose to leave the eye white. That's up to you. So I'm going to show you a couple more painting techniques. So I have a little bit of rubbing alcohol in here. You're going to dip the Q-tip in there, and then you can add to your patterns. I'm going to just do some dots, and you might not see the effect right away, but it will create some sort of different diffusing of the paint where it kind of spreads out. And I'm going to show you another couple techniques. So I'm kind of just doing some dots on the yellow. Maybe I'll also do some stripes on the red. So if you don't see it right away, it might take a little bit of time for it to diffuse. This does work better if you do it while it's wet. So that's another reason we need to paint quickly so that we can do these techniques when we're ready to do that part. Okay, so I did a little bit of that. Now I'm gonna stop and show you the next thing, and that is to use a little bit of salt, and we sprinkle it where we have some of the paint. I'll tell you, it looks best in the dark areas. Now, some of this does look like it's dried a little, so what I can do is just put a little bit of water. I'm just dripping with that plain water because it looks like my paint has dried pretty quickly through here. And then I'm going to put some of that salt. You don't want a ton of salt, but just a little bit. And then I'll maybe even put some on my red. Alright, don't overdo the salt, so we're going to leave that there to dry completely. And then I'm going to show you one last technique that you can do. You can see the dripping of the water actually looks really cool too. So I'm going to take this red, and I don't usually let you splatter paint, but we're going to do a little bit today. So you take this brush and you put some paint on it, and then you can aim it at the paper only and do a little bit of splattering. Again, I wouldn't overdo this. So that looks good. Now, so I've shown you dry on wet, wet on wet. We did alcohol on here as well as salt and then some splatter. So you can choose what you'd like to do to create this very interesting chameleon painting.